Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Our largest single-theme land expansion ever.
Now we want you to share with us our latest and greatest dream.
Matterhorn Matt presents Matterhorn Mondays. Welcome, everybody, to episode 123 of Matterhorn Mondays, coming to you live from the Outpost. I am your host, Matterhorn Matt.
And I am your co-host, Alex the Historian.
And today we are joined by none other than the living legend himself, Mr. Jeremy. Welcome back to the show, Jeremy. It's been a long time since we've had you here.
Or as we call him, the Shadow
It's been
Man.
a very long time. I was trying to, and then, you forced me, and here I am.
I know.
Unhappy to be here.
Can't force it, Jeremy.
I know. Jeremy had to miss his interview on I think he's supposed to be on Conan, the late night show tonight, recording.
Matt, no, I wasn't. And you know this, and you're lying to your viewers.
Jeremy is supposed to be on Fox News, actually.
Oh my god.
No, never.
Well, anyways, we have a great episode planned for you guys today. As you all know, links to all our social media will be down in the description, as always. And if you'd like to be wished a happy birthday live on the stream, you can do so by submitting your name using the Google Docs, or I guess just Google Form is what it's called. Google Form down in the description below. And I believe we have 2 birthdays this week, you guys. So let's go ahead and see whose birthday it is. Let's see. Monday the 17th is Jake Earth's birthday. So happy birthday to you, Mr. Jake, as well as Friday the 21st. Mad About Disney, Mr. Mikey, co-host of my brand new podcast, Bra Moments. Shameless plug.
Hey.
Link in the description. Happy birthday to you, Mr. Mikey, on the 21st. And as well as happy birthday to everybody else who happened to not submit their birthday. You can do so. You don't have to submit your full name. You can submit your, maybe like a username you go by. But anyways, if you guys would like to voice your opinion on any of the topics we have at hand, you can leave a voicemail. Go ahead and call 575-386-5814. We'll be listening to the voicemails live throughout the episode. And before we get into any of the topics we have today, we do have a voicemail. Very special voicemail, actually. Returning guest of the show, Bob Chapstick, is here with a new voicemail. So let's go ahead and give this a listen to before we move on.
Hi, Bob Chapstick here, and I'm calling a few margaritas deep from a Rainforest Cafe. And the recent episode of Matterhorn Mondays really got me thinking. You guys are so right. FastPass ruins ride queues because even if you're not in line, you're still taking up space in line. Then there's the boarding groups for Rise of the Resistance, which is total BS, and it's all totally ruining the park experience. I should just make everything single rider and get people in and out and off to the gift shops and restaurants. Then we can make restaurants single diner as well. Makes perfect sense to me, and I have the executive decision on all of this stuff. So just say the word and I'll do it. I mean it, totally serious. In fact, I'm doing it right now. Chapstick out. Another, please? What do you mean I'm cut off? Total BS. Do you even know who I am? I'm Bob Chapstick.
Oh, God.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bob, for that lovely voice.
He's not going to remember that voice.
I know.
That's got to be one of the most hilarious voicemails we've ever gotten.
That's true.
That
Thank
was,
you.
That was the most clever. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
There's no name attached to it. The caller is from an unknown number. So whoever keeps calling in is Bob Chapstick. Please keep doing so. I love that.
Well, you can only do it so much.
That's true. You don't want it to get old.
Kidding.
But yeah, but anyways, before we move on to any of our topics today, it's time for everybody's favorite segment, you guys. It's time for Matt Snaps. There it is. That's Matt Snaps, everybody. Just kidding. All right.
A whole wide world of knowledge waits underneath the cap. It's once again time this week for Matterhorn Night Snaps.
What a great, I don't give that jingle enough credit. That is an amazing jingle.
It's wonderful to listen to.
It really is. Thank you. I keep forgetting who made it. He's messaged me on Instagram, but shout out to whoever made that. I think I said it in a previous episode, but anyways. It's time for Matt Snaps, you guys. Today we got Peach Tea Snapple, the classic, returning. I think last week I had the strawberry kiwi, but anyways, let's go ahead and pop this open. This is a glass bottle, so it should be a good snap. Let's see if we can get this going for you guys. Oh, my hands are slippery. Oh, God. That was like a legendary snap, you guys. That sounded so nice. All right. And this is real fact number 724. A pineapple is neither an apple or a pine. It is, in fact, a large berry. I guess that is a fun fact. That is indeed a real fact, you guys. Yeah, that was a perfect snap, said J.A. Jeremy did that thing again where he breathed in like he was going to say something, but...
Stop breathing, Jeremy.
I'm keeping you on your toes. Oh, my God.
Well, it's time, once again, you guys, for news from the Peak, and then we'll get into Alex in the parks, as you all know. So let's go ahead and get into news from the Peak. Yay!
We now present to you news from the Peak.
For our first bit of news from the Peak today, this is kind of surprising to me when I first read this. A live-action Rapunzel movie is in the works at Disney. It's worth noting that this is rumored to be a theatrical release, not a straight-to-Disney Plus release like The Lady and the Tramp live-action remake was. No word on whether the film will be connected to the Tangled movie released in 2012 or the series on the Disney Channel, which is kind of crazy to think that Tangled came out 8 years ago in 2012. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago.
Wow.
Yeah, time sure does fly. Tangled's a great movie, you guys, in case you haven't seen it. It's a really great movie. But yeah, Ashley Powell, the Nutcracker in the Four Realms, is writing the script, and the movie will be produced by Michael De Luca, Moneyball, and Captain Phillips. Yeah, so I've honestly...
Did you say Ashley Powell?
Is that is that not how it's pronounced?
Is that? Well, no, I was just wondering because I've never... Okay, so I thought you were just mispronouncing the name Ashley, but... I don't. Okay, you know what? Let's just pretend that didn't happen.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, it is kind of interesting to see that they're already remaking, I guess, Rapunzel, even like 8 years after the film came out. I don't know. It could not be a remake. It could be like a sequel to Tangled. But anyways, Jeremy, what are your thoughts on Disney producing a live-action Rapunzel movie in the coming future?
I think I don't know. I think it's weird that they would do that so soon when Tangled's like very recent in like the popular culture, the collective popular culture, whereas when you remake something older, those movies are timeless, obviously, but at least there is the only valid argument I can think of when those things come around is like, to do a remake of something that's 70 years old is different, Listen, I don't support those either, but at least it makes a little more sense when people put forth that argument. But something that is a film that people still, like young people still like saw in the theaters, is a little weird. But we'll see. It doesn't sound like it's gonna be like a Tangled remake. It sounds like they're just revisiting the same source material for a different movie, which is also weird. Only because Tangled is so recent in the popular culture. So, but we'll see.
Mr. Alex.
I don't know if it'll be good, but we'll see.
Mr. Alex, what are your thoughts on Disney producing a live-action Rapunzel movie?
I'll tell you what my thoughts are. People, stop buying into this stuff. They're just trying to sell you more. They're trying to make more money off of the same ideas. They're giving you, Lion King and more Maleficent and stuff. It's just stop buying into it. Just make it so Disney will create new things instead of just revisiting old things. And the only way we can do that is if we just stop watching this stuff. Just don't watch it. We already have Rapunzel. We already have these amazing movies like Bambi and Pinocchio and all of it. We have it already, and it's great how it is. Let's watch something new. I mean, it's the new decade. It's 2020. Let's stop going to remakes. Let's start creating new stuff. Create a new Roaring Twenties. Matt couldn't even agree anymore. His head's gonna fall off.
I agree completely with that, and even more so with the older films. I mean, God, we always. This is the progression of this every time that this podcast is on. It's like the first conversation's about remakes, and then we get into how the parks are dead, and then the podcast is over, and it's been 4.5 hours.
Oh my
It's another one of those days, guys.
But the thing with older films being remade that I have such a strong issue with, like the announced Bambi remake, is that you're taking not just like you're not just like regenerating content and you're not actually doing anything new. There's that on top of the fact that you're remaking a cinematic achievement. Why do that? I mean, I guess a similar argument could be made with Lion King, but I have strong feelings about that in terms of especially the big five. And, why would you do that to Bambi? That's a cinematic achievement. You have no one's going to remake Gone with the Wind. Why? Because it's a cinematic achievement. It's also problematic. Of course, that's probably a reason too. But it's flawed thinking. With the case of Rapunzel, it's really more of an obvious case, as Alex described, of just like, well, Tangled was popular, so people like Rapunzel, so let's do that.
Just rewatch Tangled, you guys. Tangled is a great movie. It's an amazing movie. Well, I guess it's not like as good as Bambi, but it's a good movie, you guys.
It's great at what it does. It has a great score,
a great cast as well.
Yeah. Better than Frozen.
Someone said in the chat that was a hot take. I don't think that's a hot take. At least on this podcast, that's not a hot take.
If I remember correctly, like because the movie Rapunzel and then the movie Frozen came out very close to each other, and so it was, you were either like Team Rapunzel or Team Anna Elsa, and so it was like I was always Team Rapunzel. I'm like, this movie, it's not a perfect Disney movie, but it's really well put together compared to the other movies that were coming out around that time. And I still enjoy watching it. It's got a lot of like millennial humor, which I really hate, but it's still a good story. But yeah, and I still can't stand Frozen. I still can't do it.
Alex, don't you want to build a snowman?
Rapunzel. Oh my God. I mean, you talk about pandering to like everyone's cute side. It's like, for heaven's sake, I could put googly eyes on this headphone set and then go like, oh, here, everybody buy these googly eyes headphones. You love it because it's cute. No, just stop. Just stop buying into the cuteness. It's nice when things are accidentally cute, like Rapunzel's little alligator, But I mean,
wait a minute.
It's like,
wait a minute. That was not an alligator.
Chameleon, whatever.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
But the point is, that character comes off as accidentally cute, but the snowman was obviously created to be cute, and it's just pandering. It's just,
the funny thing is that I actually think Olaf is better because Olaf is a realized character. That's I don't know if that's a hot take. But,
he's a snowman that likes hugs. I mean, you can't get more on the nose than that. Come on, man.
Okay. I would just want to respond to something T. Will just said, which Alex called it Rapunzel because Tangled should have been called Rapunzel to begin with. That's why.
Alex, they got you, Alex.
Huh?
You
What?
were referring to Tangled. You were calling it Rapunzel, which is not correct. No, but I
No,
would. I was also.
I think you heard that wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a historian. I know about things that happen.
This is true, you guys. But
This is in the permanent record.
Well, it's not. Well, okay. In defense of me calling it Rapunzel, it does say on the screen
It
right
does
now
say, yeah.
Rapunzel. So I'm looking at it and I'm talking.
I hear you.
The camera's right here, and my screen. Well, my screen is like right here, but I mean, the center of the screen shows the Rapunzel image. So I'm reading it as I'm talking about it. So
It's fine.
is it though? It's not
is
fine.
it?
Yes, it is. It is.
Well, for our second
is.
bit of news from the peak.
Not even a topic.
This is why when I'm on, it lasts 3 hours.
Well, I guess this is sort of not surprising. FastPass is coming to Smuggler's Run in Disneyland. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. No date as of yet to when this will be released, but as you well know, we reported a few weeks ago, FastPass is already in the version, in the Florida version, starting visits from February 19th and beyond. So I'm assuming FastPass is coming soon for Smuggler's Run, you guys, and you all know how we feel about FastPass, which we're actually going to be talking about FastPass later today for other topics. But Alex, briefly, what are your thoughts here on FastPass coming to Smuggler's Run in Disneyland, California?
All I have to say is, just when you thought the line couldn't get any longer.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yes.
And Jeremy, what are your thoughts on FastPass coming to Smuggler's Run in Disneyland?
Well, it makes sense. I mean, they can't. FastPass is a system. I'm gonna embrace the reality here. FastPass has been around for 20 years. It's been a reality of going to Disneyland for the Disney parks for a long time, and it was already odd to me that an e-ticket attraction would not have opened with FastPass in mind to begin with. So to me, it makes sense that they would eventually implement it. The only reason why I think they didn't implement it is because they're really trying to figure out a new queuing system for all attractions. So like boarding groups, which we'll probably talk about today, so I'm sure we'll end up talking about that as well today, which I have, I don't want to say about opinions about it, but I have an analysis about it. But it makes sense that eventually FastPass would be implemented for an e-ticket attraction. That's all.
Alex is thinking very deeply right now.
No, I'm just trying to keep my mouth shut.
I'm not saying whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying it makes sense to me.
That's not what I was going to comment on.
Oh, okay.
What were you going to say?
Is it my hair?
No. I just disagree that Disney is looking for new ways, to do virtual queuing. They're not. They're looking to make everything FastPass. It's like I said in last week's podcast. They're looking to make the lines longer, so you'll buy Max Pass. That's why. So, I mean, the virtual queue thing is only just for rides that open and have astronomically long waits.
I was about to say the word astronomical, Alex. We're on the same brainwaves right now.
Oh. But I don't think Disney doesn't want to make things easier for you. They want to make it harder, so that way you'll buy the stuff that makes it easy.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. But in the case of boarding groups, I found them to be a complete mess because by boarding groups existing, it actually has been increasing demand, and so more people show up, the line, the virtual line becomes longer in the face of convenience. Oh, I just have to show up and do a boarding group, and it's actually becomes inconvenient because then thousands of people show up at 4 in the morning. You know, which would not be the case if we just had a regular queuing system.
And I heard it's a lot like a lottery system.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
I personally don't know because I haven't even tried it yet because I don't even want to go into that tauntaun. But, you know, I heard it's like a lottery system and it's kind of like you either, but it's either like you get on the ride or you don't. You never know. And so I'm just like, I don't want to.
Yeah, I know, and I don't find that a good guest experience, even though they're trying to tout virtual queues as good guest experience. But I guess that goes back to what you're saying, is that they actually don't care about guest experience. They care about pushing. So weird, like a queue is a product. Like the ability to wait in line is a product. Absurd.
Well, we're going to be talking a lot more about FastPass later on in the episode, and I'm sure you guys are sick of us discussing FastPass for like the 4th week in a row, so I deeply apologize to everyone for that. But for our final bit of news from the Peak, this is a topic suggested by Mr. Alex the Historian today. Disney to release Princess Wedding Gown Collection. This is actually kind of neat. Allure Bridals has teamed with Disney on the Fairy Tale Weddings collection with 16 styles of wedding dresses that, quote, capture the style and spirit of Princesses Ariel, Rapunzel, Belle, Cinderella, Pocahontas, Tiana, Aurora, Jasmine, and Snow White, with prices ranging from $1,200 to $10,000. Now, as you can see from this image, actually, this is kind of blocking that, so I'll switch to, well, I guess it didn't help at all. But both of the little boxes there are kind of blocking the image there. But as you can see, there's Ariel on the right side, and there's the kind of...
there's Alex the Historian on the...
Alex is Ariel, you guys.
On the other side.
I'm Ariel.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, and here's one for Tiana, I believe, as well. Pretty neat looking dresses. I mean, I don't know if I were... I guess I wouldn't be able to speak for like women who would spend $10,000 on a wedding dress because I'm not a woman who would do that. But I mean, they're beautiful dresses nonetheless. Alex?
Oh, right. So, okay, this topic I wanted to talk, or not topic, but this thing I wanted to mention really quick because there were 2 different opinions I have on it. First opinion is, how interesting is it that we live in a time where people are going to be open to actually purchasing wedding dresses that remind them of their favorite Disney princesses? I mean, you know, even as early as, you know, when I was a kid, I don't think anybody would have really like gone and mass produced wedding. Well, I guess not really mass producing, but creating wedding dresses like this that satisfy that Disney need. It's such a, I almost want to say it's such a millennial thing, like that you get to buy a wedding dress that reminds you of your Disney princess. So how amazing is that? Like that, you wouldn't have seen that in the 60s, 70s, 80s. It's like only now. But the other thing I wanted to say is, do these wedding dresses really look like the princesses? I mean, okay, I'm not a fashion expert, although I did go to college for fashion briefly. But yes, I did. I really did. It was such a cliche, but I stopped. But anyway, but if you look at the wedding dresses, they look like wedding dresses that you might have already seen. Yeah. Even like the one with Ariel, that one kind of reminds me of a wedding dress that was seen in like the late 60s, early 70s, because they had the really poofy bottom, but like really slim top. And then of course the Tiana wedding dress looks a lot like a wedding dress from the 1990s. So it doesn't really speak to the character. It just seems like they're reviving old wedding dress styles that might look like the Disney character. So I just thought that was really interesting. But yeah, 2 different opinions on that. So anyway.
Jeremy, do you have any thoughts on Disney releasing princess-themed wedding gowns?
So first of all, I want to respond to something Alex said. Disney meant something different in the 60s and the 70s than today, and I think that's probably why there was nothing like that. But also, ever since Mickey Mouse, Disney has, I think, defined merchandising, merchandising in general, like what that even is and means, dominated the form of merchandising, redefined merchandising, refined merchandising. And as we arrive today, this is just the same thing. It's just luxury merchandising, basically. And because the Disney Princess has become, since I think 2000, basically literally created a franchise. This is franchising, branding, merchandising in a luxury form. It's pretty interesting, and only a company as large and influential like Disney could pull that off.
Totally true.
As for the dresses, true. those look like, but that, I mean, it makes sense. The dresses look like wonderful wedding dresses, and it's just kind of like the brand and the franchise thrown in on top because, interesting.
I'm just picturing Jeremy's head as a merman right there.
Oh my gosh. Wait, let me switch back. Oh my god, guys, Jeremy is Ariel now. Oh my gosh. Plot twist. Well, anyways, that does it for this week's news from the Peak. And before we get into our main topics, which I'll run down for you all very briefly, FastPass has destroyed Monsters, Inc. and Utopia. You guys, we'll be getting into that very shortly, as well as a rumor from the WDW Magic forums about the future projects at the Disneyland Resort. And finally, Disney ticket price increases have once again fallen upon us. But before we get into those, it's time for everybody's favorite segment, Alex in the Parks. Alex in the Parks.
Alex. Makes me sound like a creeper.
Well, Alex, before we play this video clip, why don't you give the audience a brief rundown of what we'll be expecting here for Alex in the Parks?
Fun.
That was unrelated to
You killed Jeremy, Alex. Oh my god. He's dead. Oh my gosh.
God.
Well.
I'm trying to think. There was one thing that I wanted to mention on here, but I'll remember it. Just play it. I'll remember it afterwards.
All right. Alex in the Parks, everybody.
Good morning, folks. It is Valentine's Day at Disneyland. And it is certainly a busy morning because, I mean, when does a line for Starbucks actually come out the door and then out this way? This is amazing. Well, no visible changes here in Fantasyland for the construction update, but I'll keep you posted if I see anything new. And still not fixed. Still nothing new at the entrance to Tomorrowland. The plants aren't here yet at the entrance to Tomorrowland, but I did see the landscapers out here this morning kind of looking around and stuff, so I think that plants will be coming here pretty soon. Good news, folks. There's a little bit of a change happening at the entrance or the exit of Space Mountain over here. This is the stairwell we've been following for several months. It looks like it's pretty much done. They have the stairwell painted. It's got that nice white color, kind of blends in with the rest of Space Mountain. And then the bottom landing will be right here beyond that construction wall. But it's kind of cool because they've moved back the construction walls. Last week, all this was covered up with construction walls, and now it's not here anymore. But anyway, looks really cool, and they'll be installing the metal railing pretty soon. So yeah, again, it's just an emergency exit. It's not like a main entrance or anything. But yeah, looks cool. Oh, this is a cool view of it over here. Yeah, there we go. All right, folks, we're here at the Rivers of America. The Mark Twain Riverboat is back from refurbishment. As you can see, it's running with people on it. It's got a nice new fresh coat of paint, somewhat. I mean, over by the paddle wheel, it's still pretty dirty, but I think that they left that on purpose because it always gets dirty. Anyway, it sounds like it's running fine. I might actually go ride that today. But I'm also over here by the Haunted Mansion. Just to let you know, there is still no changes happening to there's no visible changes that we can see from this standpoint. So I'm here on Town Square. As you can see, the band is coming by, but look at this. They're allowing meet and greets with the horse. That's so neat. I've never seen this before. All right, about to enter Disney California Adventure. So just a quick view of construction of the Marvel land that's going in. That's the Spider-Man building right there. Looks really big. Yeah, pretty neat. Well, anyway, moving on. All right, walking up to Luigi's right now because I want to see, they're building a new cast member building, I hear, just behind it. I want to see how that affects the view from down here because I remember when Cars Land opened, one of the biggest thing was sight lines. They were afraid of building anything back here because there was nothing to block the view. From what I've seen on recent construction, they're actually building a giant wall on one side of the cast member building that will be designed to look like part of the Luigi's building. All right, so there it is right there. Yeah, you can even see, I mean, it's hard for you to see, but there's like a little metal rings at the top peeking out above the scrims. Those are going to be concrete tires, just like on the building of Luigi's Rollicking Roadsters. But yeah, so it's going to look like an extension of the Luigi's building, but it's going to be massive. It's going to be just about as tall as that scrim is, pretty much. So, and then over here, if I peek over this wall, which I'm sure you can't see much of anything either, but you can kind of see some of the construction work going on at Marvel Land, and some woodwork going on somewhere in the foreground. Yeah, it's interesting how this area has changed. I mean, it's just weird. I'm almost never here, so sorry if I sound surprised, but I'm almost never in this park.
Alrighty.
Okay, well, as it turns out, I didn't remember what I was going to say, so we'll just have to move on.
Well, that was Alex in the parks, and someone asked when this was filmed. This was filmed on, I believe, Valentine's Day on Friday. I think that's what Alex said in the video.
Valentine's Day.
Yes, and someone asked as well, when will Avengers Campus open? Sometime in the summer. I think they said late summer. The Disney Parks blog did. Not sure. They've not released any concrete dates as of yet, but that has been Alex in the parks, and yeah, it's time for to move on from Alex in the parks to the main topics, which, as everybody knows, our first topic for the day: FastPass has killed Monsters Inc. and Autopia, you guys. We all saw it coming. We all predicted it. And yeah, it's very... the images I'm showing on screen are from @Haston on Twitter, as well as @The Laughing Place on Twitter. So shout out to them for braving the frontier, going out to California Adventure, taking these pictures. Yeah, remember last week when we told you guys that FastPass would destroy the queue lines for Monsters Inc. and Autopia? Well, I believe this report is from Saturday. Monsters Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue exceeded 75 minutes of standby time on this past Saturday, you guys. And I'm going to open the Disneyland app right now and check and see what the queue time for Autopia is.
Ooh, that's good.
Autopia is a 60-minute wait. Peter Pan, a 50-minute wait. So just in comparison to one of the most highest queues in the park compared to usually one of the least highest queue times, I should say, in the park. And Autopia is, Monsters Inc. is also up to 60 minutes, 60-minute queue time. So I'm not trying to say we predicted this, but I guess, it's kind of a general prediction that anyone could make. Jeremy.
Not just anyone. No, because here's why not just anyone. Because 2 episodes ago, when we had a conversation about FastPass, I believe there was a small number of people who were saying that I was wrong, that it doesn't really make the lines longer. It makes things faster for people. And I mean, it's right there in plain sight for you folks. It makes the lines longer, and it makes the lines longer so that way you can purchase MaxPass. It's just a design created so you can spend more money. They're trying to figure out how they can squeeze more money out of you when you're on vacation. Every little thing. It's like when you go to the shooting gallery in Frontierland. There's a reason why it costs quarters. It could be free because it's so cheap, but it's not, because they're like, hey, we could really use your pocket change.
Yeah, and Jeremy actually wasn't here these past few weeks when we've been talking about FastPass. So what are your thoughts on FastPass destroying the standby queue? Kind of an exaggeration.
Well, it's no longer theory, because before it was kind of like it took us. Well, I mean, Alex is probably like, no, I knew right away. But like when FastPass first came out, it was kind of like, oh, this is a nice replacement of like the ticket book system. It did feel like when you were going down the FastPass line that it was faster. But it took a while to kind of like feel the difference. So it took, you didn't really notice the change. This is immediate. This is an immediate case study. Attractions that get FastPass, because crowds have been the way they are, we immediately notice the difference. Monsters Inc. I just want people who may not be familiar with this, with California Adventure or the Monsters Inc. ride. This used to be a walk-on, no wait. You just walked on. Maybe on a crowded day, it would be 15 to 20 minutes long. Yeah. Autopia is a little different. I think that's always had a steady popularity. I've seen that be up to maybe 45 minutes, and I've seen it be an hour on extremely crowded days. But still, the Monsters Inc. one's the one for me that is like, wow, you can really clearly see the difference of what happens when you implement that system.
Yeah. Yeah. And even today, just being Sunday, like, I guess considered like an off day almost, it's still, the queue line for Monsters Inc. is still 60 minutes. And yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing to me. Alex, what are your thoughts on this whole FastPass fiasco? There we go. Title of the episode, FastPass Fiasco with Monsters Inc. and Autopia. That's been happening.
Well, so I'm trying to organize my thoughts. So Autopia has at least one benefit going for it. So Autopia has 4 different tracks that they can load people on. The past year or so, I've only seen them use up to 2 tracks. So Autopia has been decreasing in popularity, I think. That's just based off of what I've seen. So maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like it's been decreasing in popularity. So when they added the FastPass to it, the line only went from 15 minutes to 30. And I think the reason is because they opened the other 2 tracks, and that's also absorbing some of the people. But you can expect that come this summer, it's probably going to shoot up to 60 some odd minutes, even with all 4 tracks operating. So that's something I expect, but that's because of FastPass. Again, it just makes the lines longer. And then with Monsters Inc., we saw an immediate jump in the wait time. I mean, what was it? Last week we were looking at a 10-minute wait time, and now it's 60 minutes. And that's because Monsters Inc. doesn't have extra ride tracks. They only have the one track. So if it fills up, it fills up. And now the thing is I know I always say I told you so, and it's because I have to. I really, I have the chance. I should just do it. But I'm not like a genius or anything. It's just that as a person who studies Disneyland history, when I look at something, I always have this need to research the past, or at least try to compare and contrast things with the past. So every time I see something new implemented at Disney, I try to either, if I remember that they did something similar, or if I don't remember, I'll go and research to see how did that thing work in the past. And how did I know FastPass would double the wait time or even triple it for the lines? Well, because I remember a time when there wasn't FastPass and how things worked and how much smoother things ran without FastPass systems. Not just because the lines were quicker, but because of the way the lines operated was just easier. But I also compare to contrast it with how things started operating later on. So it's just, as a person who studies Disneyland history, I kind of wish that not just Disney, but people who view Disney like the rest of you would look at how these things change the park, and even like go back and see, has Disney done something like this before, and will it negatively affect the park? And yeah, that's kind of just, that's yeah, I don't know what else to add to that.
Yeah, it is very interesting, which we're going to be touching on why we believe FastPass was added to these two attractions for our final topic when it comes to the price increases that recently happened. But before we move on to that, we do have a second topic to get to. This is a rumor coming from the WDW Magic forums. Now, this is a very interesting rumor, thanks to Mr. T-Will, for who I guess frequents this forum. I'm not really one for reading, so I don't go on these forums all that much.
You make that very clear.
Yeah. But anyways, apparently things are... Poop is hitting the fan, you guys, at the Disneyland Resort due to the coronavirus outbreak happening in China. I believe it's in China, not Japan. China. We're gonna go with China.
Oh my God.
I'm haven't been keeping up with the news, you guys. A few weeks ago, we re-reported that I believe Shanghai Disneyland and Hong Kong Disneyland had closed indefinitely due to the coronavirus outbreak. And yeah, as you can see from this post here from the WDW Magic forums, that closure of the two parks in that country have really been affecting not just the economy of the Chinese sort of Disney parks, but as well as it's trickling over to the American Disney parks as well. Yeah, it's also worth pointing out before we move on that these are rumors that we're going to be touching on here from the WDW Magic forums. Nothing here is confirmed, but you know, it does make a lot of the things that have been said here do make a lot of sense, you know, in light of the events that's been happening. Chapek is apparently demanding all current projects not past a certain go/no stage be frozen through at least fiscal quarter 3, maybe through the end of the fiscal year entirely. And the current response plan by Team Disney Anaheim, TDA, is to have Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway site contractors in Disneyland wrap up current work and put the site to deep freeze until it can hopefully be restarted later this year. The opening for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in Disneyland will be delayed because of that, assuming it restarts work by the end of this fiscal year. And this also has been affecting Phase 2 of the Avengers Campus. Work for Avengers e-ticket is also now frozen, and the current Avengers Campus work and Spider-Man ride has been allowed to wrap up and will open on time, but all future Avengers Campus work and the e-ticket attraction construction as well gets frozen through this fiscal financial year at least. So yeah, that's kind of a big blow to pretty much all the big projects that have been in the works past Avengers campus. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which is, I believe, opening next month in Walt Disney World. But yeah, Magic Happens will debut as scheduled later this year, but Disneyland Resort Entertainment was asked to create a plan to cut staffing for that parade after it opens. So I guess we can sort of pause there and sort of recap, and then we'll continue on with what else was said in this post. So, Jeremy, what are your thoughts on all these freezes that have apparently been happening here to the Disneyland Resort regarding the future projects due to the coronavirus outbreak and the closure of the China theme parks?
Well, rumored
yeah.
freezing, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I want to make that clear. I guess it makes sense, and I know there was kind of a debate on Twitter about whether or not those park closures would affect the U.S. parks.
Yeah.
I tended to believe it would, just because Disney's a greedy company and they take it out on, they take it out on the employees, and they take it out on projects, and they take it out on. They would let it affect the American parks. I wouldn't put it past them. But again, these are rumors, and I don't know. It's just weird. I just don't see how. I don't know. Alex is gonna supply me with thoughts. I feel like Alex should start first, because he has more of a logistical. In terms of stuff like this. Kind of like the inner workings of the company. I think Alex is better, and then I'll come in, and then he'll inspire me to come in with something else. So Alex, I'm passing the torch to you, and then I'm gonna take it back when you inspire me. Basically, is what I'm saying. So please start talking. Please now.
Okay. Okay, so the thing about this rumor so far is it sounds pretty plausible, because I remember I think it was either last week or the week before that I was actually saying that that the closure of these parks would probably affect the company. And it's kind of obvious why. I mean, like, these two super expensive parks, they actually cost money when they're not operating, because as you know, the company creates all kinds of contracts with vendors and other companies, and just a mess of things. It's not like when you, I don't know, open like a coffee shop and then you're like, oh, we got to close it. It's, it's kind of like you got this massive theme park with all kinds of things going on, and when you close it, it starts racking up money, and it's just, yeah. So anyway, the point is that it seems pretty plausible to me, and it's really unfortunate too. But I don't really agree with Jeremy's opinion that it's greedy to take it out on the rest of the resorts. It's expected, is what I think we should say, because the thing is like the resorts. Okay, it's costing a lot of money. I don't know how else to say it, and the parks tend to earn the most money, especially consistently across the board. I'm trying to phrase how I want to say this, but I don't. I'm so tired. There was a time when the company's movie business wasn't doing so well, and they didn't. This was way before they had other business ventures and stuff, like the cruise line and all that. And it was a bad time for the parks. This was the 70s, and Disneyland and Walt Disney World were basically carrying the company through these hard times. And this is another one of those situations where the other theme parks are going to be expected to carry the company through hard times, because it's not just the Chinese parks that are in trouble. It's also the Chinese theaters that are going to be playing Disney movies through this
that's
time.
A great point. Point.
So we're probably going to even see cutbacks happening within the studios. But nevertheless, this is one of those really hard times where the company really relies on Disneyland, Walt Disney World, and now, Disneyland Paris, to really carry them through this tough time. But these Disneyland and the other parks, they can't do this. They can't carry the company unless they cut back on expenses, and that's a reasonable expectation, is what I think I'm trying to say here.
Do you think it's a reasonable expectation for the price increases as well, then, on top of all of that?
Yes, but I think the price increases don't necessarily have to do with the expense of the parks. I think the price increases actually have more to do with the capacity of the parks. So, but I think we're going to get on that topic. Yeah.
Well, continuing on from this rumor, like I said, it was a rumor. Even though T-Will did send me an update here to this from, I guess, a well-known member in the WDW Magic forums. He's sort of cooperating. Is that the right word? I feel like I'm pronouncing it wrong.
FUD?
I don't know.
Cooperating.
Oh God, that is the best. You go. Oh man. I'll have to get you to say some stuff in Elmer Fudd later.
However that word is pronounced. Is that not how it's pronounced? How is it pronounced for real then?
Corroborating.
Cooperating.
Cooperate.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say
we
is...
really shouldn't laugh, though, because some people have that speech impediment. But,
that's true, but anyways,
you're right.
I guess the rumor was corroborated from another WDW insider, and that there would also be Walt Disney World cutbacks that would be announced later this Tuesday, I believe, is what the update T-Will sent. But moving on from Avengers Campus and the Magic Happens Parade to refurbs happening in Disneyland. Refurbs now in progress, mainly Haunted Mansion and Snow White, are continuing as supplies and job numbers were already charged, but future Disneyland Resort rehabs for this fiscal year are being canceled or scaled back for anything not in ride maintenance safety scope. So no show upgrades, no plussing, quote-unquote, from WDI, etc. Plan to reintroduce a plussed-up version of the Eastern Gateway to the city of Anaheim later this year is now frozen as well. No more work will be done on the Eastern Gateway throughout at least the fiscal quarter 3 of the year. So that's kind of a big, interesting. I had no idea that Disney was planning on reintroducing a different version of the Eastern Gateway to the city of Anaheim.
I don't believe that. That's probably the one thing out of this whole thing that I don't think is believable.
Okay. The fact that they were moving forward with a different version of the Eastern Gateway, you mean?
The fact that they were even talking about moving, I don't think that's even true. It's just there's a lot of reasons why they wouldn't.
Well, I guess we can sort of pause there again and sort of recap that. Maintenance process, Haunted Mansion and Snow White will continue on as normal, but any other future in the pipeline refurbs that are going to be happening through the park have been paused as well. And we're going to move on to another very interesting part, I believe, as well. Let me see if I can find it in my notes here. In Glendale, planning for a Coco D ticket attraction, as well as New Tomorrowland, are on hold for Anaheim. So yeah, that's kind of a big F in chat for that, if this is indeed true, because this is a rumor, if we haven't said that enough times. But
So a Coco attraction for one of the Anaheim parks, or
I'm
not
thinking,
a Coco attraction for Florida?
I'm thinking it's for one of the Anaheim parks, because that's sort of
Interesting.
what this article was, or this rumor was centered on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard that rumor before. The Coco. See, the rumor that I heard is that the Little Mermaid ride would be rethemed to Coco.
Interesting.
So that's what I heard.
Interesting.
I guess that could make sense, but losing the Little Mermaid
Well, because
is
it's
kind
on
of
Pixar Pier, I guess. But I mean,
yeah. Excuse me, but
I mean, I would love a Coco ride. I just don't think it.
yeah,
Me too.
I don't want
Me
them
too.
to get. I don't want them to get rid of the Little Mermaid for
Mhm.
Coco, unless they're gonna move the Little Mermaid to Disney. Then I'm totally okay with this. But
The weird thing is I'm fine. I mean, like I would be fine with the Little Mermaid becoming a unique attraction to the Fantasyland in Magic Kingdom in Florida. I'm kind of sick of carbon copy attractions. Yeah, no, but
didn't ours
that-
come first?
it doesn't matter.
It does.
It's better. It matters.
We had ours first. Ours opened
matters.
in 2011. Theirs opened in 2012.
And theirs is
We
better
were there
suited to the theme of the
It's
park.
true,
It's
it's true,
better suited
though.
to the theme
It
of the
is.
land. It's a better designed layout. I mean, the ride is the same layout of the queue, the landmark that incites you to go on it. It's a better experience. Coco would, I think, fit more into. I mean, it is Pixar Pier. We love it or hate it. I hate it, but
Someone
that
needs
might
to throw this guy in the cavern of bubbling death.
I think Coco has better an atmospheric quality that would suit an attraction, which is why I think if World Showcase is going the way of look at where all these movies take place, I think Coco would do wonderfully in the Central American Pavilion, which is really what it is. And I think it could work in California Adventure.
I agree.
I agree, but I think like if they're gonna install a Coco ride, they should just move Little Mermaid to Disneyland where it belongs. I don't want them to destroy a perfectly good ride because I mean, let me tell you, we have been waiting for a Little Mermaid ride since 1989, and
Absolutely,
it finally happened, and now Disney's like, let's just go ahead and tear that page out.
No. Why can't it exist in Florida?
In Florida, yeah.
Because
I'm a strong advocate. I'm a strong advocate. I don't think that's a good enough reason. I'm a strong advocate.
Ours is the one that Jodie Benson went to.
Oh my
Okay, fine.
God.
I still don't think that's a good
Mic
enough
drop.
reason. I still don't think that's it. No, I don't agree. So, yeah. I like
Checkmate.
I like diversity. I like variety. No, it's not.
No, I mean you guys both make really good points. Someone said in chat that it would be better, in my opinion, to get rid of Goofy's Sky School and replace that with a Coco themed attraction. I don't think there'd be enough room maybe for
There's not room.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be enough room for a Coco ride if you tore down Goofy's Sky School, but I feel like it would fit in better in that sort of corner of the park, opposed to removing the Little Mermaid and replacing it with Coco. But anyways, the big thing that I wanted to touch on, New Tomorrowland is on hold for Disneyland, according to this rumor, which we have not stressed enough. This is a rumor that we're talking about from the WDW Magic forums, although it has been, double sourced from the forum. But we're still taking all this with a grain of salt, not trying to cause any alarms for anybody. But, according to the rumor, New Tomorrowland is apparently on hold for Disneyland. Now, I'm not sure if there were any sort of concrete rumored release or I guess opening dates for the New Tomorrowland. I'm thinking, if my memory is right, I was thinking 2023, 2024 maybe, if that. But yeah, it is a big blow to to Disneyland.
It's a shame
as a whole.
because this should be, in my opinion, New Tomorrowland should be top priority.
Yes.
Top priority. It should have been top priority for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a shame that they keep pushing that back, because with each year, that land grows duller and duller and duller, which is a shame because it should be the most exciting land.
It should,
you know.
At this rate, New Tomorrowland will be Old Tomorrowland by the time it comes out. That's a joke, you guys. Anyways, yeah, big blow to all you Tomorrowland lovers out there. We're gonna move on to the final bits of this rumor. Some strategic layoffs are possible for Team Disney Anaheim, just so TDA can claim that they helped out WDW. Does bigger layoffs, but Disneyland Resort Management has heard Chapek is focused most on high-paid Imagineers at the Glendale campus, as well as mostly at WDW and the massively bloated salaried armies out there. That's kind of an interesting way to phrase that. Salaried layoffs in Glendale and Walt Disney World Resort will happen if Hong Kong Disneyland and Shanghai Disneyland closures go into April and beyond. So, this is even getting into the territory of people higher-ups losing their jobs just because of this coronavirus outbreak and these two parks being closed. So it is a very interesting time. I'm not really sure if there's been like another time in the Walt Disney Company history, or at least I guess the park's history, where some outside force has forced park closures like this that has affected not just the parks that have closed, but other parks around the globe, and maybe in regards comparison to the September 11th attacks. But that was just closed. The parks, I believe, were closed for just a day.
Well,
if I'm remembering
it happened
correctly.
at Tokyo Disneyland during the 2011 earthquake. It was closed for like 2 months or something like that. But I mean, that was one resort, and this is two. But I mean, technically, each of these two resorts only has one park, right? So it's the equivalent. It's 2 parks are closed. Same thing with Tokyo, is 2 parks are closed. So it's comparable. Yeah.
So we will be following this rumor very closely, not just because it affects Walt Disney World, Disneyland as a whole. Like I said, the rumor was corroborated. I said it wrong again. By another insider on the WDW Magic forums, and that there would also be cuts coming to Walt Disney World that would be announced this Tuesday as well. Not sure when that will be leaked to us normies in the Disney fan community. But yeah, we will be following this very closely. Very interested to see the development of this, the closures of the 2 parks that have been affecting the company as a whole, really.
I really hope that this rumor isn't true, only because, well, not only, but because there's a lot of stuff that is planning on being installed in the Disney parks around the world, and there's a lot of new and exciting changes that are supposed to be coming. Stuff I've seen that I can't even talk about yet. But if it's
in private after the show, maybe.
Well, you twist my arm, sir. But yeah. So it's just, it's.
Alex, your mic is muted to the stream. You can talk about it now if you want. Just kidding.
Oh God. But yeah, it's just it's sad, and especially like a New Tomorrow of to have that. And it makes me really sad to think like all this stuff could stop, because of this dumb virus that is spreading everywhere, Wash
your hands, people. Get your flu shots. Is there a flu shot for is there like a vaccine, or I don't know. Wash your hands, I guess, is like the only advice I would be qualified to give everybody. don't rub
Wash
your
hands,
eyes,
wash your
don't
face,
touch your mouth
wash your
with your
eyes.
hands. Yeah.
It's a shame that New Tomorrowland isn't a priority because not only for creative reasons, like it's so long overdue for something new and fresh and exciting, but also it would help so much with the capacity issues, because the potential for a Tomorrowland can have so much variety if they do it right. You know, it'll help so much with capacity if they're able to put a variety of different experiences in there. That's guests. You know, I don't know if I necessarily trust Imagineering to create those kinds of experiences anymore, but I hope they do. You know, and if I was in Imagineering, I would be like, put me on New Tomorrowland. I mean, that is Tomorrowland 68 is why a lot of people love Imagineering to begin with. Sorry, 67. You're right.
Owned. Jeremy owned.
Destroyed.
Don't you write the history scripts for
I
math?
do. I do.
That is a bro moment.
Oh God. I just love
I
doing
quit.
that.
I'll retire as of now.
Well, like I said, we will be following this rumor. Can't stress that enough. This is a rumor. We will be following this rumor very closely throughout the end of February, March, April, to see how this will continue to affect, because I guess the closures of the two parks aren't rumors. That's things that have already happened, and we know that has been affecting the company already. We just don't know to the extent of what those closures have been affecting the company. But we will be following this very closely as the next few months go on, and we'll keep you guys updated as well. But before we move on to our final topic, it is time to take a little break to hear from the show's sponsors. If you guys are wondering where you can find even more family-friendly live streams just like this one, head on over to theliveplace.com. The Live Place is your headquarters for great family-friendly live streams. They cover anything from Disney to other vacation spots, various variety shows, and have some amazing streamers like Resort TV 1 and myself. Also, be sure to check out puckermint.com, where you can find amazing pins and stickers. Puckermint is based out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, just a few hours from where I live. And since I'm a big believer in supporting local artists, we decided to partner up. Be sure to use the coupon code down below when you make your next order. Again, that's puckermint.com and puckermint on Instagram. Welcome back, everybody. For our final topic, like I promised, we will be going through all the brand new price increases that have happened to the Disneyland Resort this past week, and that is prices for the single park tickets, park hopper tickets, as well as annual passes that have been increased, as well as Max Pass that has gone up a fair amount this past week. So we'll get into that right now. Single park, 1 day. I'm not really sure what this means. New tiers were introduced as follows: $104, $114, $124, $139, as well as $154. I'm assuming that means like related to the, I guess if it's like an off day or whatever, or like a very busy day, they'll fluctuate between those prices. There wasn't really no explanation as to what that could mean.
That's exactly what it means.
Okay.
It used to be a 3-tier system, so there were only 3 different prices. But this year they've introduced 5 tiers to make it more, different steps, different levels of busyness.
Interesting. So, depending on what time of the year you visit this upcoming year, as well as how busy it is, prices will range from $104 to $154 for a 1-day single park ticket entry to Disneyland or California Adventure. 2 days single park entry has increased from $225 to $235. 3 days gone from $300 to $310. 4 days has increased from $325 to $340. And finally, 5 days has increased from $340 to $360. You guys know, doesn't seem like that much, but if you add up, if you're a family of 4, that $20 for your 5-day single park entry ticket, $20 times 4, that's however much that is more added to your, I can't do math right now, added to your vacation bill. But moving on to Park Hopper, 1 day, new tiers introduced as well, $159, $169, $179, $194, and finally $209, depending on the time of the year you visit, how busy the park is. That's for 1 day. And for 2 days, price increased for Park Hopper from $280 to $290. 3 days gone up from $355 to $365. 4 days gone from $380 to $395. And finally 5 days increased from $395 to $415. Imagine spending $415 to visit California Adventure and Disneyland Park for 5 days. That's a lot. And that's just for one ticket, you guys. If you have a family of 4, like I said, 415 times 4 people. I'd honestly cry myself to sleep if I did that math right now. But anyways, moving on to annual passes. Select annual pass increased from $399 to $419. Flex Pass increased from $599 to $649. Geez, that's a mighty jump. Deluxe increased from $799 to $829. That's $829, not $8.29, by the way. Signature increased from $1,149 to $1,199. Signature Plus increased from $1,399 to $1,499. And finally, the Premier Annual Pass has increased from $1,949 to $2,199. So, a lot of big jumps that have been happening this past week in regards to the ticket prices. It's also worth noting that Max Pass has increased from $15 a day per person to $20 a day per person. $5 jump, you guys. That, in my opinion, is one of the biggest jumps we've seen. I believe Max Pass was introduced just for $10 per person when it was first introduced a few years ago. It's up to $20 now, you guys. And these price increases, it's a lot of money, you guys. These price increases come before the opening of the brand new Avengers Campus that is opening later this summer in Disney California Adventure. And that is all the price increases that have been happening at Disneyland Resort. Alex, what are your thoughts on these brand new price increases? It's also worth noting as well that these are regular increases that happen throughout the Disneyland Resort as well as Walt Disney World that happen annually. But it is sort of interesting as well in the context of the previous topic. We were just talking about the big hits that the company as a whole has been taking from the closure of Hong Kong and Shanghai Disneyland due to the coronavirus outbreak. So Alex, what are your thoughts on these price increases that have been happening?
First of all, we have this conversation sometimes twice a year. Every time there's a price increase, which is 1 to 2 times a year, we have this conversation. Now, I'm actually going to ask you to return to me for what I have to say. That's because I want you to stay tuned, because I have a single question for everybody here that might actually just end the conversation entirely. So we'll
accepted.
We'll ask Jeremy what he thinks, and then come back to me, and I'll ask you all my question.
All right, Jeremy.
Oh boy. All right. It's complicated because one could argue that ever since the late 90s, Disneyland has rebranded itself into being a resort. Literally, it's called the Disneyland Resort. It's a relatively new turn of phrase for the park, actually, when you think about the long history of the park. Alex is already taking notes. And so because of that, one could argue that it has become a luxury product
Mm-hmm.
in a way. However, you can rebrand it that way, but to the people, it doesn't. You can't take that away. I mean, it's very clear the past 15 or so years that there's been a total disregard for the people that the park was designed for, the locals of Southern California. I wrote an extensive tweet thread about this, basically comparing what Disneyland is to Southern Californians is to what a Central Park is to New Yorkers, a planned environment designed for the enjoyment of its locals. That was what Walt Disney sought out to do with Disneyland. And when you have the CEO of Disney say things like, we don't have a pricing problem in the parks, he's disconnected with the hearts of the people who visit the parks, because he's looking at numbers that say very clearly, well, you know, we can keep increasing the prices and people still come. That is true. That is true. The reason for this, though, is because Disneyland has a certain emotional resonance that just other parks in the theme park industry don't have. The other, other parks in the theme park industry are luxury products. You know, Disneyland has always been something that's been deeply connected to the enjoyment of people, deeply connected to the specific people that come and visit it, the people in the surrounding areas. Specifically Disneyland. Disney World was designed as the vacation kingdom of the world, is what it was marketed as being called. Disneyland, not. It is also a vacation destination, but it's because it's a marvel. You go there to, but it's for the people that surround it. And when you price out those people, you take something very fundamental away from the park experience. I mean, my family and other families I've not renewed my pass for many years now, just because I live in New York. But my parents keep renewing their pass despite their financial situation getting worse and worse. That has nothing to do with them. The annual pass has nothing to do with their financial situation, but they still do. Why is this? Because Disneyland is a very unique place. Yeah. People are still going to go because it means something in existing in the SoCal area. In society, Disneyland is unique because it understands the fundamental value of what parks serve in society. I don't think any other theme park or any other amusement park understands this. Disneyland does, and that's why people still go despite the widening gap in wages and incomes. Because it means something. And as John Hench described it, the architecture of reinsurance, there is a social value to this park. And people will still go, and whether you increase prices or not. But there is a pricing problem, because the price increases are deliberately pricing out the people that the park is designed for. And that's my fundamental issue with price increases. It hasn't fixed capacity. In fact, the tier system has increased capacity. There's no off day now because of the peak system.
Yeah.
It hasn't solved anything that it sought out to solve, except making locals not go to their local place of recreation, like Central Park. Imagine if New Yorkers were priced out of going to Central Park because they valued tourists going to Central Park more than New Yorkers. Or it's very similar to what's happened to Broadway. There's more of a value for tourists seeing Broadway shows as opposed to New Yorkers seeing plays about them. And I think it's a fair comparison to compare all of that to what Disneyland means in the larger scheme of things. Anyway, Alex, what's your question?
So before I ask my question, I just wanted to address something that Jeremy said, which is he said that the tiered pricing hasn't actually helped decrease the crowds in the resort. And he's totally right. They haven't helped decrease, and they've helped increased the crowds at the resort.
Yes.
But the one thing I have to say about that is it's increased the slow days and decreased the busy days. And that's something we have seen in the resort. That's the whole point of the tiered pricing system, is people who can barely afford to go to the park, but can afford to go to the park, will decide not to go in the middle of busy summer because it's going to be too much. They'd rather spend $30 less and go in just before spring break. And that's what the tiered pricing is designed for, is to move the people that would normally go on the busy times to the non-busy times in order to spread out the distribution of people, which benefits not only the guests, but the company as well, because then they make more money on days that they used to not make money. So I had a question for everybody that would probably end the whole conversation, to have the conversation return to me later. Because I've asked this question many times to people and they can't tell me the answer. So, in order to ask you the question, I have to give you context. When I was in guest relations, we worked many different locations, one of them being Lost and Found in the Esplanade. Anybody who needed to talk to guest relations who couldn't go into the park could go to Lost and Found and talk to one of us, and we could help, resolve any situations they had. There was one week that I was working that a family had come up to the window and they were very upset. You see, it was a really, really busy week that week. I can't remember if it was summer or if it was winter. It all blends together after 10 years. But they were very, very upset because there was about like 4 or 5 of them, and they had been traveling from New York, and they had saved up a lot of money. They weren't very wealthy at all. They saved up a lot of money, and I think even they got a Disneyland hotel room, and I think in total they had spent somewhere around like $4,000 to get to the resort and stuff. Now, as you know, you can buy tickets online. Matt does it all the time. But when you buy tickets, it doesn't guarantee you admission into the park that particular day.
Yeah.
It guarantees you admission, but only when the park hasn't reached capacity. Well, this family had spent money on a vacation of 3 days, or maybe 4 days, because I think they were doing 1 day at Disneyland, 1 day at California Adventure, and the other 2 days were buffer zones to get to and from the resort. But they had spent all this money already. And the 2 days that they were meant to go to the park, they couldn't, because the park had already reached capacity by the time they got to the gate. Because as expensive as it wasn't expensive enough to prevent people from going into the park. There was still plenty of people at the gates. And again, this family had already spent $4,000 so far, and they didn't get to see the resort. And they probably, I think from what they were telling me, they wouldn't be able to come back for at least another 10 years. So they told me, they said, well, you have to fix this, your guest relations. Are you really going to let someone who spent $4,000, walk away without a trip to Disneyland? And I had talked to my management. I had talked to a bunch of people because I felt really badly for them. And it was true. Their tickets hadn't even been used yet. We had checked their tickets. So they actually did not get to visit the park that whole weekend. And unfortunately, there was nothing we could do to get them into the parks. The parks had reached capacity, and the family said that there was no way that they could come back, anytime soon. Otherwise, we would have issued them a separate ticket. We would have issued them a ticket, for an extra day or something, so that way they could use the passes they already had on another time of the year. But they couldn't, because they weren't coming back. So they said, well, what can you do to get us into the parks? And we said, there's nothing we can do to get you into the parks. And so my question to you folks is, what should I have done? What should Disney have done? The parks reached capacity. You know, and we could, what we did was we comped them their hotel room, but that didn't make them happy because they weren't coming back for another 10 years at least. So, it's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You have to charge high prices if you want to decrease the demand for the park. And it sucks as a local here. I mean, I live 10 miles away from Disneyland. The only way I can possibly afford my annual pass to Disneyland is because I have a YouTube channel that generates its own money, and it barely pays for the pass, which allows me to film vlogs for you guys. That's the only way I could go to Disneyland at this point. But at the same time, I go into the park the other day. There was lines out to Harbor Boulevard. And I'm like, and the whole time I'm thinking, God, is the park going to reach capacity before I even get in it? Because everyone's going to see Rise the Resistance. So, it's just one of those things. That's why the prices increase. Now, Scott Zuki in chat says, they should have arrived at opening. Phase closures don't happen right at rope drop. Well, they did this weekend, I'll tell you, because those guests were there not even an hour after the park opened. The park had reached capacity.
Yeah.
The park actually had let people into the gates half an hour before it opened in order to decrease the amount of crowds that were gathering in the Esplanade. It happens. And it just so happened that was a point where they hadn't raised ticket prices for a whole 365 days at that point. So people were starting to be able to save up money for that pass. And so there was just, there's no, and even JA also says maybe people staying on property should be guaranteed entrance. You can't guarantee it.
Yeah.
You just can't, because if you try to reserve them a space in the park, what happens if those people don't show up? So it's just like, you just can't. It's a first come, first serve thing. And so the only way you can prevent people from showing up in droves is to price them out. It's a supply versus demand thing. It's economics. I mean, it sucks. Economics really sucks sometimes, but it's a high demand place. Everybody wants to go.
Yeah.
Right. So that was excellent. I don't think you've necessarily closed the conversation, only because you've introduced it as a larger. It's a complicated thing. There really isn't a solution to, and the reason for this is because when you zoom out, there's just a larger issue of where the economy is in terms of gaps in income and the phasing out of the middle class. And I think that's probably the fundamental part of why this is an issue to begin with. But it's complicated because what do you do? And what should Disney do? And there's a larger issue going on in the country that we can't talk about on this show because it would get into a political conversation that I think directly affects and Disneyland ticket increases is a case study of a larger issue going on. But that's what makes it complicated. Because in that isolated incident, what do you do? Well, you have to raise prices because demand is very high. But it's difficult because I feel like demand is never going to go down for a place like Disneyland because of what it is, what it represents,
Oh no,
it's difficult.
Economics always grows unless there's a major downfall. So it's the same thing. Disneyland will always continue to increase its capacity and its guests will always continue to come as long as the company is successful. You can't stop it no more than you can stop inflation in the economy. You can't stop inflation. It's just, It's going to happen. Either you slow it or you have some kind of weird thing that happened with the Great Depression, but the thing is I don't know. And I'd like to address some things that people are saying in the chat because You see, a lot of people think that there's a really simple answer to this, and there isn't. There
isn't.
Life is rarely simple.
Yeah.
There's some people here that they're saying, Cesar Lopez says, what's another 4 or 5 people gonna do? I definitely would have let them in. Well, Cesar, it's not Disney's choice. It's the fire department. Every place is given a capacity, and you can't exceed that, or else you're shut down for the day.
Yeah.
The same thing can happen. I had a friend who always talks about this story about how he went to this nightclub who used to exceed their capacity every night because they were just so busy. And the fire department finally came in one day and they said, you know what? You guys keep doing this every night. We're shutting you down permanently. And the place never opened again. And so, that kind of thing can happen. Disney can't violate that. You can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, yeah, so let's see. Trying to read what other people said. Yeah, okay, so Superstar Lemon says Disney needs to build more higher to handle such crowds. It's not that simple, because
that'll help capacity, but it's one. Yeah,
I own a cafe, right? And it's a very small place, and right now we're in the process of decreasing the size of our kitchen and increasing the size of our lobby. But unfortunately, we can't do too much because the fire department says, hey, it's not about how small you make your kitchen. It's about how big your building is. It's not big enough. And so there's only so much we can do because there's only 2 ways in and out. And even then, even if we added a third door, which is impossible, but if we added a third door, that might help us increase the capacity by a few more people. But in the end, it's about how many people can fit in a square amount of space and how many people can leave during an emergency at a certain time. They time it. And so they already know how fast it'll go. So you can keep adding rides to Disney, and yes, you can increase the capacity that way. But there's also a point where the fire department will say, okay, Disney, you only have this many entrances and exits for use for fire safety, and it's just not enough. There's a point where it'll reach equilibrium and you can't add more people. So it's not that simple. And yeah, so
yeah, before we continue, we do have a voicemail from Mr. T-Will that we should go ahead and get to. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this voicemail. All right.
The price increases always bring this question. It's, where's the breaking point? If there is any, if they want one, if they're just going to continue upping it up, upping it up, upping it up until essentially only 3 people pay $1,000 a day for one ticket, comes in. But this actually reminds me of another company that started to have pretty high prices, but shall we say mediocre turnout, or at least mediocre. I'm forgetting the word, mediocre. But Gibson guitars, institution. Les Paul guitar. You've seen it on Slash from Guns N' Roses. You've seen it. AC/DC uses the guitars, but the prices always went up and up, and the quality never matched the prices. And it got to the point where they pretty much, they weren't investing in the quality to the point where they ended up going bankrupt. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen for Disney, but I still think that would be a lesson in what can happen if you don't keep quality up as you increase the prices, because it seems like we're not. Even with something like a Rise of Resistance, we still get stuff like a Pixar Pier, or not anything substantial for the parks. Or I would even throw in Avengers into that. That's a big investment, but it doesn't seem like a high quality investment to me. Mm-hmm. So there's always that aspect when you're increasing prices. You have to match quality to that, and I don't think it's happening. And people aren't stupid. They can notice when they're spending $500 a day for one ticket, and they're like, this isn't worth $500. So I'm just wondering where that's going to be, and how will they respond?
Yeah, I guess this is sort of just like a general discussion that is brought up every time price increases happen. Is the price worth it for these people visiting, like Alex said in his story, visiting out of town, states away for a few days? They can only visit, 2 days because they've saved up for many years before. But yeah, thank you to Mr. T-Will for that wonderful voicemail.
So it's funny because that's the exact same thing that my roommate said all the time, Barry. He used to work for Disney, but ever since he left Disney a long time ago to further his career, he doesn't really go back unless he knows someone who will invite him, but he won't spend the money to go into the park because he doesn't believe that anything has really changed since he left in the 1990s. He goes, it hasn't changed enough, is what he says. But to that, I have to tell people, how much is enough? Because look at the last 10 years. It's 2020 right now. In 10 years, they added World of Color, Little Mermaid. They've revamped Pixar Paradise Pier to Pixar Pier. They've redone Disney California Adventure, added Buena Vista Street, Cars Land. Over at Disneyland, not only have they added Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, but in the last 10 years, they've also added the Princess Fantasy Fair Village. They've revamped Alice in Wonderland, revamped a few of the other, attractions in Fantasyland, as well as gave us a refreshed Mr. Lincoln. They've given us Tropical Hideaway. They've gone and added some new things to Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad was completely rebuilt practically. I could go on and on. Disneyland Hotel got a complete refresh. So did the Paradise Pier Hotel. Downtown Disney was expanded in the last 10 years, as well as now they have the Splitsville. I mean, I can keep going on and on. They've added a parking structure, and now there's no parking problems. Now people don't have a problem with parking anymore. Just think about what they've done in just 10 years.
Yeah.
I think that's probably investment of $10 billion to the resort over the last 10 years. And you guys are telling me that none of that is enough for the price? I mean, I don't believe that. I mean, maybe it's just because my belief in the value of the ticket is different. But what I think it is that people are forgetting how much has been added to the park. And so they think in terms of what's been done in the last 6 months, and they go, oh, that's not enough. But they're forgetting that's just 6 months. Look at what's been done in just a year or two. Yeah. It's always changing and evolving. I'm not a fan of Bob Iger. I'm not saying that, oh, this is, look at Bob Iger and Bob Chapek. They're doing it. No. I mean, personally, I will never go to Avengers Campus. But I'm not going to sit here and say, well, they haven't done enough. Because, I mean, 8 years ago, I would have never even stepped foot in California Adventure. And I was there the other day. So, I mean, they've done stuff, and it's cost a lot of money. And I'm pretty sure at this point, the parks aren't even making enough to cover their bills at this point, especially with the coronavirus thing happening and the other two parks being shut down. They need to make more money. And keeping this place as fresh and as clean as it is, as much as you might say, oh, I saw some popcorn on the ground the other day, it's expensive, and guess what? This is something else we haven't talked about recently, but they've actually increased the wages of the cast members. Not all of them, but because that has to do with contracts and unions and whatever. But the cast members who are not on union have gotten a wage increase to $15 an hour.
Yeah.
Disney has been addressing all of our concerns. Is it not worth paying, that extra money? I mean, yeah, maybe they have priced out the middle class, but after a $10 billion investment over 10 years, by the way, $10 billion is how much Disneyland Park itself is worth. It's almost like they built a whole new Disneyland Park in 10 years. So I have to say it's not a fair price, but I think it's comparable. I think it's still valuable.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. Undefined Variables says, for the hotel, I think there could be a better system you could do to still prioritize the admission of hotel guests. This is part one of four messages he's sent. Perhaps for multi-day hotel stay plus ticket packages, it could be handled where the crowds let in initially leaves a little wiggle room for hotel guests who come later. If the hotel guests with these packages don't make it, the park could either admit more guests later in the day or leave a little space in the parks. Disney may lose a few guests overall, but I think the slight decrease will improve guest experience.
I don't agree with that, and here's why. You know how when a movie's really good, there's a little bit of talk about how the movie's good, but you don't nearly hear as much when the movie is bad. The movie's really bad, everyone's talking about how bad it is. The same thing happens to Disney parks, and that's really, really bad for business, because one bad little Yelp review makes everyone think that the world is ending. Case in point, my coffee shop. I don't mean to be plugging in my coffee shop, but we have 4.5 stars on Yelp, and that's amazing. That's really cool. But every time we get a bad review, it's not right, because what happens is then you get this weird mob mentality. When they see one bad review, they go, "Oh, that's awful. That should never happen to me. I'm not going there." And that's what happens to Disney. So our job at Disney is not to just deliver you a product. At Disney, we do what's called guest recovery. As a matter of fact, when I was in guest relations, that was our number one priority, is turn that frown upside down. Make it right, is what they used to tell us. It's hard to make it right when you've lowered the prices of the park and then created an issue where too many people are coming and not enough are getting in. And then you get way more bad reviews, because you might be able to comp people's meals and whatever, which, by the way, costs a lot of money in guest recovery. You're talking about at least $10 per person, and God knows how many meals you're going to be comping when, half the people that show up to the park won't be able to get in because you've lowered the prices and the capacity has been reached. But there's also the fact that those people will still leave a bad review. Some will say, "Oh, well, they've helped," but some people will still say, "Oh no, they're awful." So as much as people say, "Oh, the prices are terrible," they've priced out the middle class, which they have. I'm not going to lie, they have. But they've priced out the middle class. The problem is if they decrease the prices for you, not only will your experience in the park go down, because they're going to have to start making cuts in order to, in order to keep that profit margin that they need in order to run the park, but the fact that literally way more of the people that show up to the park are not going to be able to get in. And that might not seem like a big deal to you guys, but that creates this snowball effect for the resort. And then it goes all over media as Disneyland is not big enough, or Disneyland is shutting people out. And believe me, you've seen the media, they find ways to make a mountain out of a molehill. So, so they're going to be saying all these awful things about Disney. And then next thing you know, on Matterhorn Mondays, we're going to be talking about how Disney needs to increase the prices. So it's like, my point here is, everybody, is that the world is rarely that simple. If you can think of it in the 5 minutes it took you to write the comment, I'm not saying to any one person, by the way, I'm not like saying, but if it took you 5 minutes to think of a solution, maybe Disney's already thought of it, and maybe they've already tried it. Because there's thousands of people working for the company who are trying to make your experience better, including people like me, even down to my low in guest relations, all the way up to people like Bob Iger who are trying to think of better ways. And so the world is rarely that simple. And sometimes it's just life sucks. That's all I can say,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really have nothing to add. I mean, it is complicated, and I think middle class families who feel left out have a right to feel that way. And at the same time, what is Disney supposed to do? The times are the times. Hopefully, we'll be able to fix the middle class. But it's an interesting case study in the larger economic sphere that we're currently in. And someone should write an article like using that as a case study of the fading middle class.
Wall Street.
It's a perfect example of what is going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how complicated the issue is.
It's like when people say like, oh, we need more power. Dam. It's like, well, look at all the problems dams cause. I mean, right now, weren't we talking like last year about the danger of this dam just north of Disneyland, that if it breaks, this whole like flood of water
come by,
because the dam is over 100 years old, close to it, I think. So it's like, problems are rarely that easy to fix, and so it's just, sometimes you just have to look at it as this is a really complicated issue, and the only thing you can do is put little band-aids where there's leaks and try to plug up the leaks. But as best as you try, there's no way to fix the whole thing. It's just, I don't know if I felt like there was something else I was going to say about that, because I think someone in the comments said something, but
well, I guess it's worth touching on something T-Will and Alex both said, which completely just slipped my mind. I was going to say something very insightful to you guys, but I just can't remember, so that's kind of embarrassing.
The one time he had something
smart. Oh,
God,
I had something so good. Okay, no. It was, do you guys think price increases happen every year. It's nothing new that we've seen since, Eisner took over the company. Price increases, normal thing to happen to Disneyland, Walt Disney World as well. Do you think these price increases will keep happening, just like T-Will said in his voicemail, where it's some upwards of $1,000 for 1 day, 1 day park hopper? Do you think those price increases will keep happening to that extent, or do you think Disney will eventually find maybe a middle ground in these prices? Maybe raise the prices $1, just as an example.
It depends on the economic landscape. If we have a huge recession or another Great Depression, raising prices is gonna make it a barren wasteland. So it has to do with the market, of course, but also philosophically speaking, no. Like I said before, there's a social value to this park that stands it apart from all other parks in the theme park industry, that I really feel like you can raise prices and people will still go because it means something. Obviously if they went to $1,000 tomorrow, it would be the top headline, there'd be protests, and that would never fly. We're going to get to $1,000 eventually. Gradually, though. That's gradual. But when you think about it, 20 years ago, you compare the prices, that $1,000 1 day ticket is going to come soon. And I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll also depend on how we kind of fix this huge income gap that's faded out the middle class. It'll also depend on if we're able to, in the next decade, revitalize the middle class like we've never seen before, or have seen in the 40s and 50s, that even allowed a Disneyland to happen. Then then yeah, Disneyland will raise the prices, and I think everyone will be able to go. But it'll depend on the outside political and economic world.
Okay.
You know.
I'm actually glad Matt asked this question because it did have something to do with what I was trying to remember to tell you.
Oh.
Which is the fact that a lot of people, as you know, Disney is whether, intentionally or inadvertently pricing out the middle class. It's one of those things where, okay, so people ask, they're like, where is the breaking point? When is the breaking? And frankly, there's virtually no breaking point. So the reason is because you've heard about the top 1% of people in the country, right? Or the world. The people who have billions of dollars. It doesn't sound like that many people because it's the top 1%, but it's a lot like the world's collection of fresh water. There's I think 1% of the world has fresh water, where the rest is salt water. That doesn't sound like much, but then you look at things like giant lakes that, take you half a day to cross, and that's all fresh water. There's a whole lot of people in that 1%. And there's enough people in that 1% that Disney can actually continue to operate year round with just the 1% attending the parks. And so the thing is I think the point I'm trying to say is the sky is the limit when it comes to the breaking point. The only difference here is who is reaching that breaking point. And it's going to be the lower people, the middle class and all that.
Yeah, but isn't that what the park was designed for? I mean, it would be we'd be getting off on a different conversation about whether that's
all right.
And I think you and I would agree politically about that, but I understand you're just stating a reality, right?
Okay. I mean, yes, but let's also think about what that middle class was in the 1950s. In the 1950s, if you lived in the middle class and you were a single man, you could earn, I think it was $7 a day. I believe I'm remembering it correctly. $7 a day. And with that money, you could not only afford your own apartment, but your own car, and still have plenty of time to go out and spend your income on things that you want. If you were to compare the amount of money that the person in the middle class back then earned to today, that would be comparable to someone who probably is like a physician's assistant, and I would say pretty much that. Someone who earns I want to say $100,000 to $150,000 a year is what that person would be. We all know that the middle class today is really more like people who earn between $65,000 to $120,000 is technically what we all think of as the middle class, whether or not that's the actual definition. And a lot of us would like to think we're in that middle class, but I mean, there isn't as many of us, especially in this comment section, who earn more than $150,000. So the thing is that
right. I see where you're. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So technically the middle class has shifted. The middle class is now today what we would think is slightly upper middle class. So
yeah, okay, but you can't deny there's so much more of a gap than there was in the 50s. I mean, that's just a reality. And I think I would hate to see something like a Disneyland just be this extreme luxury product for the 1%. And I think you would agree with me on that. I understand you're just stating a reality of a future in which we don't fix the current problems that we have. But I don't know. I just would find that park would lose its purpose.
Okay. Its purpose was not to entertain a single class of people.
No, all people.
Exactly.
And that would become more exclusive.
That's true, but think about Disneyland in 1950. did you know that in 1955 people were complaining about the $1 admission price to the park?
Of course.
They said that was an astronomical price because who
Right.
would charge an admission fee on top of buying your tickets for the rides? People thought that was extremely elitist back then. And we're still talking about it today. You know, the thing is that I think unfortunately, I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat this because you just can't. But if you don't have a big enough income, like a disposable income, you're just not going to be able to afford the more expensive things in life. That's just a thing about life, and that's something that economically we can change, but that's a whole different conversation. But
it's related. That's why we're veering off on this conversation, is because exactly, yeah.
And and so the thing is that it's just not. It's one of those things where Disneyland also, for the longest time, up until even the 90s, Disneyland was not nearly as popular as it is today. The park reaching its capacity back then of 70,000 people was very much unheard of. Now today, it's almost like it almost seems like every weekend the park is reaching its capacity. So you also have to consider that the park was cheaper then also because they were trying to fill that capacity. Now today they don't have a problem filling it. Now today their problem is trying to prevent more people from coming when the gates are already shut. So and so the other thing too is said he was talking about my little example earlier. He said $7 1955 is $68 today. Well, don't also forget that just because you calculate inflation does not mean that that's how much it would actually cost. That's just calculating inflation, because it's really hard to explain because I'm not really much of an economics person, but
2 plus 2 is 4.
Maybe maybe someone else can explain this better than I can, is what I'm saying. But if you were to take the price of a loaf of bread in 1955, let's just say it was 10 cents, right? And then if you calculated inflation, I'm not even doing the math, so just bear with me. Let's say you calculated inflation and today that's $3, right? I don't know. But let's just say it was $3. And then you go, wait, but that doesn't make sense because a loaf of bread today is like $4. So why doesn't that add up? Well, that's because you're not also taking into account other factors such as the cost of production. The cost of production does not go with inflation. So Disneyland is the same thing. It's like, I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say here. So the middle class is not like the same thing. So even with my example of, $7 a day, you might go, oh, that's $68 a day. I can make $100 in it. And it's like, okay, but that's not taking into account how other things have changed prices, which does not go with inflation on a graph. It just doesn't, it's not the same thing. But anyway, yes. So that's why that's why the whole thing about, about Disneyland costing $1 in 1955 versus how it doesn't seem to match up with how Disneyland costs $104 at least today. That's also because of the differences and things. But anyway, so yeah, it's a very complicated situation because yes, the middle class is being priced out of Disneyland, but it's not on purpose. Of course, does Disney want your money? Do they want you to open your wallet and give them your cash? Of course. It doesn't matter whether you earn, like $100 a year versus, $100 million a year. They want your money. Don't think that they don't. It's just that they, the park reaches capacity. The restaurants outside the park reach capacity. The resort can only handle so many people, and in order to continue running these resorts that we love and keeping them clean and having the right people there to take care of them and stuff like that, however complacent we get about the way that they do it, it costs a lot of money. As a matter of fact, there's a Walt quote that says, money, it costs a lot of money to do this.
Costs a lot of money to,
yeah, so it's...
but what does he say after that? He talks about doing it out of love and doing it for the people.
Yeah.
And I just don't think Disney has that same level of social responsibility.
Well, no, I mean, because Walt's dead. I mean, if you think about
Spoiler alert.
So something else might...
but I still think they should. But,
but
call
you
me crazy.
Can't, because...
Yes, you can. I believe you can.
No, you can't. Because you know why? You know why?
You have to lead by example. I think you can. Why can't you?
You can't, because now you have way more than one brain running the company. And the thing is that in Walt's time, everything was what Walt wanted. And yes, he had to argue with executives back then. He often complained about how executives would chew him out for his business decisions. But in the end, it was always Walt's say. I believe another favorite quote of mine is, "The tail does not wag the dog," is what Walt used to say. So that's one of my favorite quotes. But the thing is that there is no longer anybody in charge of the company with that kind of command. Not even Bob Iger has that kind of command. And so the thing is that even Bob Iger has to answer to people. And you have so many people who are running the company. And let's not forget the shareholders, the people who own shares of the company, who want to see returns on the amount of money that they invested in the company.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see things that positively affect that money. And sometimes the best way to achieve that amount of financial return is to do cheap things like create a snowman that likes to hug people. So, it's like as much as we want to believe that Disney can once again be that heartfelt company that cared about the little people, it can't, because it's now a well-oiled, okay, not well, but it's an oiled machine, and
it's a machine
and
oiled with olive oil, not real
and
oil.
Again,
Matt, just let me and Alex talk. You just
Matt just stayed out of it. But again, let's also not forget that this machine doesn't have a single brain. So people who say, "Oh, Disney is an evil corporation," no. I mean, am I evil? I used to work for Disney. I was part of Disney. Am I evil? Don't answer that. But am I evil? No. And so the thing is that thank you. But but yeah, so the thing is that there's a lot of different people running the company now, and it's not just one person. And even though there is someone as CEO, it's not like he can just snap his fingers and say, "Okay, we're doing this now." It's like he has to create,
Okay, but a CEO, like a president of a republic, has a symbolic value, right? And if you lead by example, if you speak, you can direct public perception of the company, and then the public demands the company to do the things. A CEO does have the power to direct the company in a certain direction. I believe this.
Okay.
And I think you can. And it's not even a matter of can. I think it should, even if it can't.
But that's also...
And I think there's no reason in having the expectation and holding a company accountable to itself.
Yes, but the problem here is that, you see, it's true. A CEO can kind of change the way a company thinks. It's been proven,
Iger did it. Eisner did it as well.
Yes. But you also have to think about, how does that CEO think? The CEO is gonna change the way the company thinks based off of how they think. How much do you expect?
Which means you can do that. It just takes the right CEO, the right leadership.
Okay, there you go. There's your example. The right CEO. What do you expect from a CEO that was pulled from ABC?
I will listen. You and I always agree on this, but it's an issue. We're saying can or can't, the company can with the right leadership. So it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
It's highly improbable. It's impassable. It's the thing is that, okay, for instance, you know who I think would make a great CEO for the company? Would probably be either either Josh D'Amaro or it would be George Kalogridis. So either of those two guys would make a good CEO for the company. The problem is that the people who select the CEO are also people who you have to expect hold those values that we consider traditional Walt Disney values. They're not, you can't expect the board of directors to elect a CEO who is like Walt Disney, because first of all, what was Walt Disney? Walt Disney was a risk taker. Walt Disney did things that could have, made the company fall in immense ways. But thankfully, he kind of always had the right direction in mind, and usually things turned out successful. But look at what most companies do, which is they elect a CEO or a president of a company that doesn't take such risks. They'll take certain risks that maybe the company can afford, but nothing that could totally destroy a company. Unless, of course, the person that does do that is when a company is in financial danger, like Lego got a new CEO who did something super risky, but then again, they almost had nothing left to lose because they were dying, and they still are. Like, who's dying? People buy Legos. But anyway,
Legos are fun.
They are. But yes, so the thing is you got a company that is dying. So do you really need, this Winston Churchill of a, CEO, or do you need something more like a, I don't know, Theresa May? You guys don't know British politics. Anyway.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
So anyway,
you definitely need a Winston. If you have a Winston Churchill of a CEO, a great speaker, a great communicator, you can rally the board. You can get the board to get on the ship and take the risk with you. If the board trusts your creative integrity as a producer,
but
they will go with you on the risk, and the risk will reap rewards if it's the right CEO.
But the thing about Winston Churchill was he was put as prime minister during the war because people thought this is a perfect thing for him. And it was. He got them. But look at the second time he became prime minister. People are like, we don't need some war hero. We need someone who knows how to run an economy. And so that's the thing is when you look at Disney CEOs, when you're in financial trouble, you need the war leader, the person who's going to take those big risks and get you through the problems. But Disney is not in a state of financial problems.
But without risk, it grows stale.
True. But again, it's not like you and me are electing board of directors. Who elected them?
I know. But the point that it can happen. It can.
Well,
I don't. It would take, it'll be a miracle, but it can happen.
That's okay. That's what I'm trying to say too. I
don't think it's impossible. I don't think.
Okay, I made a mistake by saying impossible, but I meant impossible that it's virtually impossible. That's what I meant to say. Is that
I think great leaders are always there, and
you would have to change the minds of a whole bunch of people who elect that leader you want them to elect.
Yeah.
And companies nowadays, including Disney, don't want to take risks on a CEO who's going to be like, you know what? Let's bulldoze Disneyland and build a whole new different type of park just for the heck of it and see how it does. They're not going to elect someone like that. They're going to elect someone who goes, okay, we got a perfect system. Let's just make some tiny little investments here and there. That's what they want. So, it's just not, it's like T-Will says, possible, but not very probable.
Regardless, I still think it's valuable to hold the company accountable to itself, regardless.
Irregardless
of whether it's okay, whatever.
Well, that did make a very interesting discussion. Thank you to Mr. Alex and Jeremy. But I'd like to leave you all, not just Alex and Jeremy here, but you all listening or watching as well. In regards to these price increases, trying to price out these people, stop the park from reaching capacity, what are any alternatives you can think of right off the top of your head to increasing price that could, solve this issue that we've been talking about?
And keep in mind, if you can think of it right off the top of your, someone in Disney probably already did.
Yeah. Well, briefly, Jeremy, what are your alternates to raising prices to decrease the capacity of the park, or to, as we've been saying?
I think after the discussion today, and I think Alex is going to say something very similar, is it's a very complicated issue, and I can't even, because of this conversation, I can't even come up with a solution. It's really complicated.
Well, I guess it's worth noting that we're talking about Disneyland, not Walt Disney World, where Walt Disney World has 4 theme parks. However many water parks they have, they don't necessarily have this capacity issue where,
I don't have a solution because the park is the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an alternative because I think the big mistake was trying to make something that wasn't designed to be a big resort.
That's true.
And because of that, we have a huge capacity issue, and it's a problem. It's a problem. Like I said, Disneyland was designed to be this local park, like Central Park is to New Yorkers, for people. And now it can't be for the people because it was rebranded to be a luxury resort vacation destination to match Disney World. And it was a mistake. So I'm pretty cynical about it now because I don't think there is a solution, which is kind of where I've ended with this conversation with Alex about how complicated, because what is Disney supposed to do? Not race, but they've got themselves into this mess in the first place.
Yeah.
There really isn't this, I can't think of an alternative.
Alex, what about you?
I can think of solutions for fixing crowd flow in the park, but that really doesn't have to do with capacity.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people would probably say third gate. I mean, they're already thinking about it in the chat section. Third gates are awesome ideas, but they don't decrease the crowd issue.
Contribute more to the issue.
Yeah.
Yes. It's just like when people, when people thought that, that adding Galaxy's Edge would decrease the crowds because it would draw people away from the rides that you traditionally like Indiana Jones Adventure. But it didn't. It only made the problem worse. The same thing would happen with the third gate. Yes, I know it's a separate park, but it would draw more people to the resort as a whole. And think about it. Who's going to make a trip to Disneyland Resort to see the third gate and not visit Disneyland sometime on your vacation? So it's just going to
Wasn't that the issue with the second gate in the first place?
Yes, because people thought, oh, well, everyone's going to go to California Adventure now that we have a California Adventure, but that's not what happened. People go, oh, we're going to Disneyland Resort to see California Adventure, but we have to see Disneyland too.
Of course.
So of course, but as for my solution to the price increase issue, all right, I'll give you my solution, but I guarantee none of you are going to, because why? God. It's unrealistic. It's unrealistic. Here is my solution to the price increases. If you want to decrease the prices of Disneyland, bulldoze Galaxy's Edge, bulldoze the e-ticket attractions at Disneyland, stick with everything from A to D ticket attractions at Disneyland only, and implement a reservation system for the park that will book up within the first hour of the park's opening. So if you don't get it, you can't enter the park. That's how you're going to decrease prices at Disneyland. And I guarantee you're not going to like how your vacation ends.
Oh, okay.
I just want to answer T. Will's question. Yeah, prices would still increase because that's the way things work. I mean, but I don't think they would increase in such a extreme way as they have even over the past 15 years. The reason being, there's two things. I mean, well, actually, the main thing is because they're increasing. They've been increasing prices in this extreme way specifically because of capacity, and I don't think that would be as much of an issue if they didn't make it this huge resort complex. Not even a huge resort complex, but a resort complex. So the prices would still increase, but I think they would be far more reasonable than they are as they're trying to frantically figure out how to stop people from coming. Yeah. And people would definitely still complain. People always complain about price increases, you know, and people are going to complain about any price increase in this day and age because of what we were talking about with such the large gap in incomes. So, I mean, yeah, it's complicated. That's what it goes back to.
Yeah, I mean, my roommate still complains that milk costs like up to $3 or $4 sometimes, and I'm like, dude, like you still live
sometimes
in the 60s.
More.
Especially if you still get it delivered to your house in like the glass bottles. I bet that costs even more.
Oh, dude. No. That would cost you less, believe it or not.
Really? Okay, well, I was...
Yes. The only reason why the milk industry got rid of the whole bottle thing, it's none of the reasons they tell you. Not recycling issues or safety with sanitation. No, it's because they wanted to charge you more money so you can buy the bottles you have to throw away.
Mic drop, you guys. Alex just blew everybody's mind. Well, anyways... I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on any alternatives you can think of to raising the prices. Alex and Jeremy have spitballed a few. People in chat have spitballed some ideas, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts as well down in the comments below. Yeah, this is, again, a tradition, Disneyland tradition, talking about price increases, what we can do to avoid these price increases, but... You know, it's
see you again next year, folks.
Literally, exactly.
I think we even said that a year ago.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. Well, anyways, I believe that is going to do it for this week's episode of Matterhorn Mondays. Thank you all for coming to today's episode. We had a lot of great discussions, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on all the topics we discussed, including, like I just said, alternatives to raising prices, as well as the rumor from the WDW Magic forums that we touched on freezing of the future projects happening at the Disneyland Resort, including Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, New Tomorrowland, and as we discussed in our first topic, FastPass destroying the queue for Monsters, Inc. and Autopia. We'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. And as you all know, links to all our social media will be down in the description. Alex's Twitter, Jeremy's Twitter, my Twitter as well. Whatever you guys like to... Instagram, all that kind of stuff, linked down below. And do you guys have any final thoughts you'd like to leave everybody before we close off the episode?
Don't go to Disneyland, folks.
Always go to Disneyland.
And there we go. That's the episode, you guys. Spend as much money as you can at the parks. Just kidding. But anyways,
we didn't even talk about the extreme increased price of food and drink.
Oh God, yeah, Max
maybe
Pass
next time.
too. Oh my gosh, we left out so much stuff. Left to your own interpretation, you guys. Max Pass, I think I touched on Max Pass increasing from $15 to $20, and we were going to sort of loop that back to why we think they added Autopia and Monsters, Inc. to FastPass just to increase the price for Max Pass. But anyway, we'll touch on that in a future episode. This episode has been a long one.
Done.
Yeah, this episode's done, you guys. It's Finn. It's over. But anyways, I have Cracker Barrel waiting for me that I ordered, so it's time for me to sign off. So thank you to everybody. Oh my God, Chris said, "Hey guys, did I miss anything?" Chris, we're just about to get started on the episode, you guys. Chris, we're just getting started. It's time for news from the peak, everybody. Just kidding.
Oh my God.
Imagine it's like an endless loop of Matterhorn Mondays, news from the peak. But yeah, thank you all for coming to today's episode, and as always, have a great big beautiful tomorrow.